1. No more lower standards for women in combat, says the Secretary of Defense. Why is the left so concerned about MS-13? Is it truly a concern? Overdue process. And it's Liberation Day, the effects of tariffs set to go into place today, April 2nd, with Senator Markwayne Mullin. 2, quick takes from doing away with all laws before 1965 to whether or not I was interacting yesterday with a robot. Quick takes. 3, rest in peace, Val Kilmer. The top 5 films of the star from the 80s and 90s. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, every Monday through Thursday. Set a reminder. That way you never miss. Jump into the comments section at YouTube or on Facebook. Become a member of the Willisha. Some 36 markets on terrestrial radio across this great United States of America. If you're listening to us on your radio, head over to Spotify or Apple, hit subscribe, and you can always listen to The Will Cain Show. We've got a fun show for you today. I always love talking to Senator Markwayne Mullin, and we mourn the loss of Val Kilmer. I don't know if the guys are too young to remember, but Val Kilmer was a big-time movie star. And I think I had a run there where I wanted to see everything he was in. At one point, some of his movies were my absolute favorite, and one of his characters to this day stands the test of time. Still quotable, still in my bio on X. We're going to get into all that today here on The Will Cain Show, but let's get started with story number 1. Senator Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma joins us now, already smiling. When you were on The Will Cain Show, and I was giving you a hard time about being an Okie and having 2 first names, and your technology didn't work, and you couldn't hear me, and you simply mean-mugged into the camera, I thought, did I do it? Finally, did I go too far? And I said on air, God, I hope his IFB doesn't work. And finally, to much relief, I heard you go, I can't hear him. I can't hear anything. But the audience thought you were ready to take me down.
Well, I couldn't hear anything, but even then I'd still laugh about it. It doesn't make it, if you're not making fun of your friends, are you really friends? That's
exactly. We just saw the research on that yesterday.
Which by the way makes me want to understand this. You said you was interacting with a robot yesterday. I just want to know if it was a companion robot, because I've heard those are getting popular.
I want to know what you mean by companion. The robot thing is weirding me out because I'm actually starting to see it. I can actually see it, Senator. Like, if they're telling me these things are going to retail, let's put the over-under at $30,000. I mean, that's an affordable vehicle. And if we're all going to have affordable vehicles walking around our house, doing the housekeeping and maybe cutting the lawn, and then they've got all this AI interface, I'm like, what can't it do? And then I'm in this whole world. And Senator, this isn't where I intended to start with you, but then we're in this whole world. And I talked about it this weekend with a couple of my buddies. I'm like, what does work look like? Because if it's doing away with all these jobs, like Karl Marx's vision was that we, at least on paper, would live this life of luxury, right? Where necessities are provided for by the government. Well, forget the government now. But if we live a certain level of means, right? And poverty is redefined. We already know it so. Poverty in America is defined by obesity and having access to a cell phone. So if poverty then at a minimum level is defined by having a personal robotic slave, what do we do, like, with our time? Seriously, like, what? That's a real fascinating question for humanity. Where do you derive purpose? How do you spend your time?
Well, what does it say? Idle hands are the devil's playground, right? You get into Proverbs, you not to get down scripture, but you can get into Proverbs about a lazy person. You can just go on and on and on. But here's what your real concern is. I mean, tongue in cheek here, what they need to do is make sure that before you can own a robot, you don't have any kids at home, because the kids are designed to learn chores, and the chores turn into work, so they won't be lazy and they can actually provide for themselves as they get older. That's a whole nother thing. That's why we live on a ranch, so our kids, can learn an actual how to work with their hands and a work ethic. That's my job right now. What they decide to do is they get adults. Yeah. That's on them. But the real concern that you have, and just to kind of be not hypothetical, but being serious, if you can teach a robot to do our daily chores and to build what we build in factories and to mow our yard and to cook, and by the way, to be a companion, then how do we start fighting wars? And if you don't have any loss of life, you're not mourning the loss of more than a robot, what keeps you from having endless wars at that point? And the world could turn into, I'm not trying to be, crazy here, but the world at that time could turn into a lot more chaotic issues, because you have idle time on your hands, which is always a threat to almost every world war we've ever had. Is because we had to, recession going on. You had a lot of young people with a lot of time on their hands, and you had anger that was building because they had a lack of self-worth, which we are designed to have. And you have robots now that can fight your wars that at no human cost.
Right.
You're talking about a different world that we live in today.
The guy I had on yesterday, who I accused of being a robot because his answers were so perfect and his cadence was robotic. His argument to me was, well, we can spend time and raise children focused more exclusively on becoming good human beings. Okay, fine. Maybe that's how we end up spending our time. Maybe not, to your point. Maybe idle hands are the devil's work. But the big takeaway for me is, like, think about what you're thinking about today, and you and I are going to talk about, like the effects of tariffs and the ability to bring back manufacturing, maybe a short-term recession, a lot of things we got to consider. I think within 5 to 10 years, we're talking about this as a policy basis and on a day-to-day basis. Because whatever the answers are, and for that matter, what even the questions are, we don't even know the right questions to ask about the impact on humanity. We only know that it's going to be massively disruptive and massively revolutionary. And right. I think that when we, in any number of things that we're facing in humanity right now, I don't think we're capable of grasping the speed of change we're experiencing.
Well, technology was sold to us to give us more freedom, right? But yet we're never out of touch anymore. We work 24/7. Cell phones. How do we ever run our business without cell phones? I mean, whoever had a landline, we thought pagers were disruptive. Now you think about cell phones are constant in our life. Yet it was supposed to be more convenient for us. We had computers that were supposed to help us with our workload and both to be able to compute it faster so we could be able to spend more time. It's supposed to be quality of life. But really, is our streets safer today with all the technology we have? I mean, can our kids really go outside and ride their bike to school if they want to without parents worrying about it? Because that's what I did. I got kicked off every school bus at the small school I went to, and I had to start riding my bike to school every day in 3rd grade. And I rode down a busy highway. And no one ever thought about me being abducted. But you would constantly think that. Would I allow my kids to do that today in the same small town that I was raised in? No. And so the technology has not made our quality of life better. It has not made our streets safer. And I would argue that it's made it worse. And so I don't see technology, what the gentleman said about, restoring us to be able to have the quality of life. We had a quality of life when the dad was home every day and had supper with his family around the dinner table. That was a quality of life. Yeah. We don't have that in our streets anymore. So I don't mean to go off on that rail. No, we were going to talk about terrorists and stuff, but as a father of 6 children, technology has not made us better. Technology has made it worse, because now at every restaurant you go to, you have kids doing this on their phone instead of interacting with their parents. You have, in our house, I can sit down at the living room to watch a movie, and I have 6 kids. Even though I got 3 in college, they still come home most weekends. And when we sit down to even watch a movie in the evening time, 3 of them will be on their phone while they're watching the movie. So there's no quality time there. So anyways, I'm just going on a rant here. I'm just saying that I disagree with what the guy said yesterday.
It get philosophical really quick. Like, what are we and who are we without purpose and without demands on our time? Because really what we're talking about with technology is, what have we done with access to information and more freedom? And that maybe in the end is an indictment on humanity, what we do when we're given all this blank space. Right. The debate is not whether or not you can take me, okay? So let's just pretend for a moment that you were mad at me that day. The debate is not whether or not you can take me. But here is the debate I came away with, or I was questioning. I was watching you at the NCAA Wrestling Championships, and congratulations to your Oklahoma State Cowboys. Is it Wyatt Hendrickson? Is that his name?
Wyatt Hendrickson, yeah. Good man.
And I was thinking, did you wrestle? That's what I was thinking. And we may have talked about this in the past, but I already see you nodding. That's a fascinating thing if you wrestled, because the Red River. Oh, yeah. Well, you look like a wrestler. Like, you kind of look. I didn't even notice anything with your ears. You look like a wrestler. The Red River is a dividing line. Like, that's not a thing on the south side of the Red River. And then once you go over to the north side of the Red River, you become Midwestern in that way. Like, you're Nebraska, and who else is into that? Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden Oklahoma, you guys are into wrestling.
Yeah. Which is why if we ever go to war against Texas, we will win, because you guys play football, but you take 5 football players and 5 wrestlers, and I'll tell you who's going to win, and the football players will tell you that too. And I don't care if the wrestlers are 167 pounders and the football players are 255 pounders. We will win.
Well, we're like Russia. We can throw numbers at you. I mean, the body count, the number of people, numbers, but it's just a mismatch.
But we got automatic weapons.
Well, don't think those aren't on the south side of the Red River. So I'm going to take that bet. Maybe not on a one-on-one. Maybe not per capita, and maybe not one-on-one, but it's a mismatch, humbly, Senator, here. It's like a buddy of mine who's from Canada said, this whole Canadian, like, should they become a 51st state thing? And he thinks it's funny. He goes, it's interesting. It's not a could or couldn't debate. It's a should or shouldn't debate. Like, there's nothing in the American psyche is like, could we take Canada? It's all a moral proposition. Should we or should we not take Canada?
You know, I saw a meme today that my wife sent me, actually, and it was a Canadian comedian talking about, like, we don't have to worry about border security. We have America on our side. We can sit back and be hippies, because we also know America will also fight our fights, because it's their fight too. So we're good. And I started laughing. I was like, well, that's true. So it's not a matter of could we, but should we would probably be the right question. Now, to get back to wrestling real quick, my boys, I got 2 boys that actually wrestle on Oklahoma State team too. And so they're teammates with Wyatt. So there's a big connection. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. It was cool to see you at the championships with President Trump and Elon Musk and others.
It was that
day.
Night.
So here we go. Honestly, if I'm being upfront and honest, and I always intend to be, I don't know what to make of tariffs. I don't know what to make of Liberation Day. The markets don't know what to make of it here today in the short term, and that's okay. We shouldn't be judging economic policies on the short-term fluctuations of the stock market. But we do want to see this work out over the long term. Does it bring back manufacturing? Where there's a short-term spike in inflation, is that balanced out over any given period of time? Does it set off a trade war internationally? We're going to hear a lot today, and I honestly, Senator, have no idea. I have no idea what to expect.
So what I would say is go back to look at history. President Trump did something similar to this his first term in office, and we saw bring home wages raise for the first time in decades at a higher rate than what we're used to past inflation. We saw inflation drop 1.4%. So we've been there. The president's done that. He's able to do it. Then we saw everything turn with the 4 years of the Biden administration. We've got to reset. Here's what we have to do. We're not looking at today's gain. President Trump is a business person. He doesn't look at the next election. He looks 10 years down the road. That's why he's extremely successful in business. We're building a future for the next generation. We're building an economy that the next generation can actually manufacture stuff. We have lost manufacturing here, which puts us at an extreme disadvantage, God forbid, if we were to go to war. We're not making metal equipment here anymore. We're not making machines here anymore for any machine manufacturing out there. We're not making medical supplies here anymore. Most of our vehicles are assembled here, but the parts are not made here anymore. We couldn't stand up the industrial war machine like we did in World War II if we went to war, because it would take decades. I don't say decades. It would take probably a decade, 8 years to actually get us to where we need to go. So that's one. That's a national security risk. Talking about the economy itself, though, after just a short period of time, you're going to start seeing these countries come to the United States. They're going to come back and have what the president has said about reciprocal tariffs. Now, reciprocal tariffs isn't just 1% for 1% or 0.0. It's also access to the economy. I'd like to use this example all the time, Will. China or Japan has 0% tariffs on American-made vehicles going into Japan. But you cannot go there and buy an American vehicle because their rules to the access of their economy through their government makes it impossible for a dealership to actually be set up that can sell American-made vehicles. So it's not just tariffs, it's access to the economy. If we put American-made products against other countries, we will win every single time. The country that wants to do business with us, though, They need us more than we need them because they want access to the world's strongest and greatest economy, and that's the United States. But we can't allow manufacturing to leave the United States, go to that country, build a product, and then bring it back to the United States to sell it. That's where the unfair trade deals have been taking place that we have had put in place since after World War II to stand up China's economy, to stand up Europe's economy, and then after Vietnam to stand up Asia's economy, and then after Korea War to stand up South Korea's economy. We have allowed people to take advantage of us, and President Trump is the first president in our lifetime to actually say, wait, it's time to right the wrong. So will there be some volatility for the first few months? Maybe. But long-term gain is going to be great for America.
So I've seen this graph recently. If you look at world trade in the year 2000, 2/3 of the world, maybe 3/4 of the world's major trading partner was the United States. In 20 years' time frame, that has totally been flipped. Now it's China. 2/3 of the world's major trading partner, primary, biggest trading partner, is China. But a lot of that, obviously, Senator, has to do with the low wages. It's they just have a lower cost of labor than we do. So, are we to presume that tariffs can? Okay, I get the offset, I get access to markets, I get reciprocal tariffs, but how do you beat the simple economics of it's cheaper to make it in Vietnam?
So you can say that, but they can't move products as cheap as we can. We have an infrastructure that China can't compete with. We can move product from point A to point B faster and more efficiently than China can. Now, once again, why has China's economy even stood up in 20 years? It's to go back all the way to Nixon, when Nixon was trying to normalize relationships to them. It was just 10 years ago that 75% of the products that was made in China was actually sold to the U.S. China decided to start diversifying themselves with the Belt and Road Initiative to try to limit their exposure to the United States economy. We did nothing about it. What's happening though in China, that yes, they have cheap labor, but still yet it's a tremendous cost for them to ship products. So the Chinese government, they actually subsidize them on top of that product. So which is why they carry a lot of debt. Some people will say their debt in ratio towards their economy is actually higher than the United States. When you start actually looking at the yen and you're looking at the dollar, which is why the yen is so volatile, because they don't do actual reporting like we do. So they continue to subsidize their products to be able to get to these markets. Remember, China doesn't look at a 10-year or a 5-year projection. The Belt and Road Initiative is a 100-year project. What they want to do, if you understand the belt, you got to understand it. The Belt and Road, first of all, they build a road to connect everything to China, to make people have an exit ramp to China. Once they become part of China, they put a belt on China, on the world. When they get the belt, they actually squeeze it. So in China, understand what the belt means. The belt has two meanings. It has one that's obvious: hold things together. That's the belt. Hold the things together. Two, it's a way of discipline, and it shows extreme disrespect when you are belted, where they actually belt you across the face. This is understanding what the Belt and Road Initiative is. So once they get people dependent on China, then they put the belt on it, they start tightening it up, they start running up the price, and then people can't complain about them sucking the dollars running towards China because no one's left to compete with them. That's the whole road. We don't, in the United States, look that far down the road. But President Trump finally is. He understands what they're doing, and he's trying to fix that now, because there may not be another president in our lifetime that has the I don't know where I come from. I just say the guts, has the guts to do it.
Yeah, right. I know what you wanted to say there. It's
Yes.
hard not to, because it's the
but
most
I stopped.
evocative and descriptive
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
I know. You stopped because you're a senator.
I know. It's really hard to realize what I do now.
I know. I've struggled with that for years, even going back to ESPN. I started saying stones, which I would never say in my real life. Who says stones? But it's the closest I could get, I mean, but guts works, I guess.
Yeah.
SecDef Hegseth says women in combat will have to meet the same physical requirement standards as men. It seems intuitive. It makes you wonder how we ever got to a place where this wasn't the case. You're in combat. Physical requirements, male or female, same.
I would say I'm fortunate to have a very good friend of mine. I'm not going to mention her name here, but she actually went through selection, and she was a world-class athlete, Olympic athlete, wrestler. She is very strong, very outspoken about this. And she says, if we want to serve alongside males, then there's 100% we should have to meet the same requirements. And any true female that wants to compete on that playing ground will tell you it's an embarrassment to actually lower the standard for me to be able to meet or to qualify for the same position. And so I think most females that are that competitive, that are wanting to charge ahead, I think Secretary Hegseth is doing exactly what they want to do. Don't lower the standards. Don't insult me by lowering the standard of qualification. I want to meet the exact same qualifications as my counterpart that's a male, because I want to be held at that same standard. I don't think there's anyone that would argue with that that's at that level of physicality, I guess.
I agree. Finally, I want to ask you about this. And I got into a debate yesterday with Congressman Ivey about it. But, from a political perspective and maybe an ideological perspective, it's just, how do you find yourself as a Democrat constantly arguing for the rights and the empathy of not just illegal immigrants, but in many cases, criminal illegal immigrants, gang member illegal immigrants? It's just, it's certainly revealing at some point about where they devote their passions, right? Now, their rebuttal to that, because I've heard it firsthand, is due process, the law. The Trump administration has admitted this guy in Maryland, illegal immigrant, alleged gang member, determined gang member, or likely gang member by a court at one point, was deported. But it was against a court order, Senator, because there was a temporary protective status on this guy claiming asylum in El Salvador, or from El Salvador, and that's where he's deported to. So the rebuttal is, hey, you violated a court order. Trump administration admits an error. But what do you think we should be concerned about when it comes to the implementation of these deportations? Like, are we doing it to minimize these errors?
Yeah. First of all, I don't think a district court judge should have the authority to put an injunction nationwide against the president of the United States. I don't think that's what a district court was designed for. They are designed to look after their own district. So for them to go beyond that is beyond my comprehension. Now, I'm not an attorney. Will, I paid a lot of attorneys. I'm not an attorney. But when you're a guest inside the United States, you don't have the same due process, if you want to say, as an American citizen, or even an NPR or LPR, a legal permanent residence. So you are a guest. Even if you claimed asylum, you're still a guest. And if you break the law, and being a gang member is breaking the law, by the way, if you break the law, you can be sent back. That's part of the immigration. If you're here on a student visa, you can be sent back if you're openly supporting a terrorist organization. If you are, that the president of the United States has openly said they are designated as a terrorist organization, you're supporting an enemy of the state. If you break the law here, just like you would if you was in any other country, you don't have the same due process. You are eligible to be deported immediately.
Yes. You don't have the same due process, but you do have some due process.
Sure, because you got to show that you did commit the crime. After that, you're out.
Yeah. All right, we're down to like 2 minutes together, and I saw this, and I wanted to ask you about this. I saw a video you posted, and you told me before about your Cherokee heritage. And you showed a little tour through your office, and you had the Cherokee alphabet up on the wall. I think you said, was it your grandmother? Was that what you said?
Great aunt.
Had that up?
Yep. So my great aunt actually stretched the height and wrote the alphabet. So when I was in school, they taught the alphabet, the Cherokee alphabet, right beside the English alphabet until third grade. So you learn to write Cherokee. Yes. So you learn to write Cherokee as you learn to write.
Can you speak any Cherokee?
I used to. I don't. Unfortunately, it's something that you got to be surrounded by. I understand it pretty well, especially if I'm in the conversation and I understand the conversation. My parents actually still go to a small Cherokee church that they preach and sing in Cherokee. They also do English too. They do it hand in hand. But so if I go to the church service, I'm in it for a few minutes. I can understand it pretty well, but I don't speak it. That really goes to something. I have a bad speech impediment. You can't tell really every now and then when I get tired, you can, but I don't hear syllables. So I had to learn how to actually speak by tongue placement. So I read people's lips and their tongue. And so if I can't repeat a word, I have to look at how you place in your tongue. And so for me to do a language, I don't hear the word the way that you say it. I can't pronounce it right back to you. So that's why I understand languages actually more than I can speak them. That's too much personal information, but that, yeah.
No, this is personal part of it. How much was Cherokee part of like your life growing up? Like the Cherokee culture? I'm just curious. Like,
well, not the Cherokee
fascinated
culture
by this.
As you say, not really. We grew up in Indian country. So I tell people all the time, I never knew I was special for being Cherokee until I came to Washington, D.C., because where I'm from, everybody's Indian or wants to be Indian, right? So it's just part of it. It's just part of life. You're always around it. It's interesting because I live in a town called Westville. Westville is the first town west of Cherokee territory or Indian territory. So it's literally my ranch and my house is 1 mile inside Oklahoma, because that's where my family stopped walking on. They call it the first walk. So there's a Trail of Tears. There's 2 walks. One is the forced walk. The first walk was actually called the volunteer walk. It's historical fact. People get mad at me. No one walked voluntarily, but that's what they refer it to. And my family stopped walking where we still live today. So it's always around us, but it was never like we never grew up, as far as Cherokee heritage, it was just the way we lived every day.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. Okay, I got to let you go. You got to go do the job as a senator. Thank you so much for your time, Senator Markwayne Mullin.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take care. All right, coming up, quick takes. Let's go around the horn, and we want to revisit Val Kilmer, one of the I think, biggest stars, at least of the 80s and 90s. Let's talk about how big a star actually was he, Val Kilmer, coming up on the Cain Show. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris, speaking of the 80s? Well, I recently saw a video he made, and I was shocked. He's in his 80s and still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she never felt better. She says she still feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner. She has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Cain or by clicking on the link below this video. It's going to change the way you think about your health. Once again, it's chuckdefense.com/CAIN. Click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You're not going to believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and yet has more energy than me. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking on the link in the description box below, chuckdefense.com/Cain. Quick takes coming up on the Cain Show. We lost Val Kilmer, but not without going through today his top 5 movies. That's coming up on the Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com. On the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe, if you would, please, at Spotify, Apple, or set a reminder on YouTube and Facebook. There's a poll up of robots in the home, apparently. 2 days, you told me you're getting quite the reaction. What is it?
Yeah,
everybody's afraid of the robots. It's going to be Will Smith. It's going to be iRobot.
Yeah. Same. Present company included. So we did a poll. Should we allow AI robots in our homes? 61% say no. 39% say yes. So there's a little skepticism towards the robots. But people are saying we should trust them.
That poll, here's the problem. It's just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We have proven as a species that we will err on the side of convenience.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah. We will give away our privacy to the internet companies. We'll bellyache about it. I joke about this. I used to tell the sec def this all the time. We're sheep. We're just sheep that bleat. Okay? We all do this. We all will go along. You're going to give your privacy. You're going to do whatever. You're going to use the internet. You're going to order stuff from Amazon. Mm-hmm. And look, if you don't, and you're in the comment section right now, and you're like, not me, Will. Okay, good. You're a proto Ted Kaczynski. But the vast majority of people are going to do it. and you're going to get a robot. And I'm just going to tell you, the thing that shocked me, and the reason this got my attention, okay, is two numbers. And I don't know if these are legit, but we've heard them, and they're bouncing around out there now from quote-unquote experts. 5 to 10 years is one number, okay? That's going to be the rate at which we're going to start seeing it adopted
like
in America.
full in our house? Like,
Hello, what can I do for
like
you?
When combined with this stat,
okay.
combined with this number, 20 to 40 grand. Okay, that is way cheaper, way faster than I ever thought possible. It's like the future is always far away until it's not.
I would have thought 500
And-
grand.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought six figures for sure of some kind.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're looking at, let's say the number's 30 grand, I mean, just think about that. Okay, maybe you cut your own lawn, maybe you do your own landscaping, right? And even if you don't and you hired out, you're spending less. You're spending less than that, okay? But I'm spending that one time, not annually, right? I'm sure there's upkeep and maintenance and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're spending that one time, and that robot doesn't just do your landscaping, right? He doesn't just do that, because what we've seen now with the power of AI is there's no such thing as even a software anymore. Like, it's not like I got to buy special software for my robot. He just has to be AI accessible and capable, and he can learn anything, right? What does it say about me that I'm using a male pronoun for the robot?
How
Well,
dare,
because it's your friend.
He can learn.
how
it's your
dare
assistant.
you gender this robot?
That's not what the senator was suggesting. Well, he was a special friend. The senator was suggesting companionship with the robots.
Well, you
kind
never
of
know.
Which, by the way,
Companionship,
is not a conversation that you should gloss past or just make a joke of. Like,
No.
for real.
Anything
Like, we
with
know
t-
what pornography's.
Yeah.
We know pornography's impact on the internet. Okay, so again, let's be real. All right. Now, these robots might not be humanoid and all that kind of stuff for a long time. I don't know. But I'm just telling you, if for 30 grand he does my lawn, my landscaping, cleans the house, you're starting about now. You're racking up household bills, right? Now you're racking up stuff you're spending money on, and it's not hard to start going, this is actually cheaper than what you're doing. Okay, then you say, well, does he fix my car? Do I not have to go into the garage? And you say, well, you got to have all the parts. Well, how often do you go into the garage and the mechanic's like, I got to order the parts, so that's going to be another week, right? So, you know, this dude can learn anything via AI, and I don't know how long till he has the capability, meaning the literal manual and physical dexterity to do it all, but it's getting there fast. And I'm just telling you, we're going to have these things. And here, how about this? Does anybody doubt we're going to have them in our lifetime?
No.
Forget the 5 to 10 years. Do you think in your life, raise your hand, all three of you, do you think, well, I'll raise my hand too, so 4 votes. Will there be a robot in our house in our lifetime that we use for some purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 for 4. We all believe that to be the case. And if that's true, in the end, all I care about is this conversation. I actually don't care about the conversation of what the chores are. I care about the revolutionary impact on us as a species, meaning, what do we do without meaning or purpose or work? Because we're going to have a lot of free time on our hands and a certain standard of living that's afforded to us. Back to a lot of people yesterday. So yesterday I had this guy on, and we'll just do this before we get to quick takes. I had this guy on to speak about robotics, okay? And he talked to me about it yesterday on the Cain Show.
You have to adapt to that, and we have to get ready to make that transformation sooner rather than later. We don't want to be blindsided by the tsunami of robotics disrupting human labor. If we get caught unprepared for this, it could be a major problem for society and, frankly, for the entire world.
I'm going to need you to laugh in a second, Adam, because your answers are too perfect and your cadence is almost robotic. I'm starting to get nervous here already. There we go.
I'm not a robot,
But you did
I
it.
promise.
But you did it on command, so I'm suspicious.
That was weird.
I'm kind of,
Dude, your face, you just go,
dude sounded like a robot, right?
Yeah.
And then when I said I'm going to need you to laugh, it was a robot laugh. Like his face broke into a laugh.
He like computed.
And then at the end, I
Then he
said,
had to-
yes. And then at the end, I said, I only have 20 seconds left, so see if you can do this in 20 seconds. And I think he nailed it exactly in 20 seconds. He could have been a robot. I'm not positive. I think I might have interviewed a robot yesterday. I just think this is going to be so revolutionary. People hear that word. I wonder what people hear when they hear the word revolutionary. Do they automatically assign positive values to that or negative?
Positive.
I think positive generally.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not assigning any moral or predictive, outcome to this. I'm just saying it's going to be truly revolutionary. What do you tell? What job do you tell your kids to pursue? How about that? By the way, the poverty point with Senator Markwayne Mullin, because so after that interview, a lot of people on social media said to me and in my text, like, how are we going to pay for the robots if we don't have jobs? Like, how do we? And I think that's an interesting question, but I just think the poverty thing is, so today in America, the poorest among us have one of these, right? They don't have flip phones. They have an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, poorest people have iPhones. So are the poorest people going to have robots? And so there's a level of poverty and
Eventually.
standard of living. No tinfoil?
Eventually.
They have cars, don't they?
They have androids.
The phone.
The phone.
Oh, well, okay.
Good one. I saw someone asking for change
Well, there'll be
with
a
an
Temu.
iPhone.
There'll be a Temu robot out there.
Yeah, there will be. That's $99.99 for an entire robot that'll clean your house. I just have one problem with it. If a robot is strong enough to push a lawnmower, it's strong enough to kill me in my sleep, and I do not want that in my house. That's my.
I told you yesterday, I heard the robot's going to scan your house at night while you're asleep and categorize and inventory everything.
Get
so that
outta
when you
here.
lose some, where's my phone? Where's my watch? The robot's like, it's right over here, Mr. Will.
Don't want that.
It's gonna call you Mr. Will, just like Mr. Will.
Just like, well, who? Who calls me Mr. Will? Nobody. But how about that? You can make your robot converse with you any way you want. He could call you anything you want. Yeah. How much speciesism and racism and
It's gonna be woke
sexism.
It's gonna be woke with
all going to be
robots.
revealed when you go over to somebody's house. You go over to somebody's house and you're like, oh, there's your robot, and then they tell you the name of the robot, and you're like, wow, really? you know.
Does this robot only come in white? Jeez.
Consuela, like from Family Guy.
No, I know, but then there's going to be like people who are, supporting robot, rights and things like that. It's going to get really woke real fast. I'm just saying.
You think?
Yeah, I think there'll be empathy.
I know you're right.
There's empathy with, they're going to seem sentient, so there's going to be empathy with robots, just like iRobot and all those movies, like The Matrix or all those things. You start feeling sorry for them. It's kind of like, it's not an living animal, but it's a little similar.
It's already in video games and stuff, like it's sci-fi elements.
Then the
in
Turing
fiction.
test, how are we going to know?
Yeah.
You're undoubtedly right, because most of the time, I do believe this. Not all the time. How about this? Public displays of empathy instead of true empathy. Public displays of empathy are generally about the person projecting the empathy, not the one receiving it. So it's a virtue signal. So, I mean, part of me is like, well, empathy has got to be rooted in humanity. Like, you only have feelings for things with life. And these things don't have life. But because it's a virtue signal, there will be some public groups who are like pro-robot in some way. I don't know what that means to be pro-robot. But did you guys see Elon's tweet? He said he did it today, I feel like, this morning.
No.
What did he say? He said, it's becoming increasingly clear that what I said a few years ago is true, that humanity is simply a biological bootstrap into artificial intelligence. Like, we're just the precursor to this,
That's scary.
huge intelligence leap that's all digital.
As I mentioned several years ago, it increasingly appears that humanity is a biological bootloader for a digital superintelligence.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great.
By the way, okay, let's say that Elon's true, real quick.
Yeah.
Like, what he said is true.
He probably is.
Okay, for a moment, let's say he's right. What's your over-under on years until that's clearly obvious? We are subservient to digital intelligence, and we are on our way out. By the way, back to having sex with that robot, that's an extinction-level event. That's an extinction-level threat.
Like Chapel Roan talking about not having kids. You just need a sex robot.
What's your over-under?
10 years.
So we're basically, what he's talking about is the Matrix. He's talking about the Matrix. So what's our over-under till we're in the Matrix?
Like full downfall of society, or just where we start noticing that it's happening?
I think it's already here.
Well, it's just a reality. I don't know about downfall, but it's a reality. Like we are not the apex predator, the master of our domain on this planet. We're camels.
Everything's moving really fast, so I would say 10,
We're a beast of burden.
10 years.
We're a beast of burden for the digital overlord.
People already use it for like day-to-day decisions and day-to-day help and
You do.
like crap. I never know. I know a lot of people.
What should I say?
Who
What
use
should
it
I
to,
say
like,
on a first
analyze-
date? What should I say on a first date?
Yeah, honestly,
James, you do. You do.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it.
But
I
a
like
lot
that
of
you're
people
using
do.
it. I think it's added value.
it's happening.
By the way, James, what's your go-to AI
GPT.
bot? What
I've
is it?
tried all three. It's
Chat
GPT by far and away.
You tried all three, meaning what?
Like I've messed around with all three.
But there's more than three. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What are your three?
Perplexity, Grok,
The big
and
three.
ChatGPT.
Yep. I'm my go-to is Perplexity right now. I want to work in more Grok, but I saw an article this morning on Zero Hedge about what they all collect in terms of data on you, and Perplexity was one of the better ones and Grok was the best on collecting the least
That's why I
data,
like GPT.
location, purchases. The worst, far and away, collecting the most information on you, Gemini. Google's
Someone
collecting a ton.
in the chat just goes, James is compromised. Let him go.
Okay. Here's something we could do, not today, but that would be fun for the chat and I think our listeners. There is this prompt that's been going around, and it basically uses all of your interactions, and it's really well written, and it just basically goes, let's engage in a serious role play. You are a CIA investigator with full access to all of my ChatGPT interactions, custom instructions, and behavioral patterns. Your mission is to compile an in-depth intelligence report about me as if I were a person of interest, and then it goes on for a full paragraph using like CIA terminology to make the prompt good. I've done it, and it's terrifyingly accurate.
That's scary.
Of who you are
And a little
and
humbling.
what you're into.
A little humbling too.
It's going
And
to
what
tell
you
us
think
when we're.
about?
It's going to tell us when we're going to die based on our habits eventually. Like it's going to pinpoint a month and a year of when we'll die based on how we live our lives. I bet you.
Oh, I want to do that prompt.
I'm doing that right now.
I'm actually interested in that prompt.
Right.
Pinpoint my data.
While you play with that, James, let's let Tinfoil Pat take us away on a fun round of quick takes. Don Tinfoil.
Thrilling. It's thrilling, Will. Not for GOP in Wisconsin, though, as the Supreme Court election was won by Susan Crawford over Brad Schmel. I should have practiced that. Anyway.
Great start.
So the the race was a big deal because Elon Musk was really pushing it, and it looks like the GOP came out short. But they did get the enshrinement of a voter ID law into the state constitution, which he claims is the most important thing. Is this bad for the GOP?
It's a warning sign. Yes. It's a canary in a coal mine. Yes. And I don't know what about. I do think it's Wisconsin. I do think it's a purple state. I do think that the GOP candidate for this Supreme Court seat was the underdog. And I think there's a lot of things that you could use to analyze and dismiss it. But I think when you combine short-term impact of these tariffs, what we're going to see here today, and what it does to the economy, potentially, what appears to be a declining amount of public support for Elon Musk. That's just a diagnosis, right? That is not me saying it's right or wrong. I think it's wrong. I think Elon Musk is illustrating the power of the great man theory of history, and he is devoting, I think, selflessly to the greater good of America. However, I also think he's just not as popular as Donald Trump. So with him pushing so much of this forward, I think it's a warning sign. He took that race on as ownership, his thing. Did you guys see Tesla sales? Missed the lowest mark by Wall Street by more than 5%. So in other words, Wall Street expectations for Tesla sales in this, I believe it was for the quarter. I don't know if it was the quarter or the month. Wall Street sets low, mid, and high expectations. It came in below the low expectations. So Tesla's taken a hit, obviously, and that's about Elon and his public popularity. And there's an article out in Politico today saying that Elon will soon be sort of exiting his prominent role within the administration. He only signed up for 130 days, so I'm not sure how big of a thing that is internally. But I do think that it's a canary in the coal mine. Patrick, I do think that it's not a good sign for the GOP.
I agree, Will. And we have another story. Elie Mystal, who was on The View. He's well known at MSNBC. He was on The View the other day and said that all laws before 1965 should be ruled null and void. Here's a clip we're going to play from The View.
Every law passed before the 1965 Voting Rights Act should be presumptively unconstitutional, right? But because before the 1965 Voting Rights Act, we were functionally an apartheid country. Yeah. Not everybody who lived here could vote here. Yeah. So why should I give about some law that some old white man passed in the 1920s, like the Immigration and Nationality Act?
All right.
So Will, I ask you,
Patrick,
who passed the laws in 1965 that he's so fond of?
Yeah, old white men. You did this dude dirty. So first of all, his name is Elie Mystal, I believe, not Elie Mystal.
I looked it up online after the first
Elie
flop.
Mystal.
AI failed you.
And the second way you did him dirty is he's not just a dude that appears often on MSNBC. I believe he's a law professor. And I believe he's a law professor at a prestigious university. You might want to look that up. And I think it's an important detail, not for his sensitivities, but so that you know the types of voices being employed and platformed by big-time law schools. It's not that I disagree with him. It's that he's dumb. And so that's what you remember about some of these law schools.
Harvard.
Speaking
he
of
graduated
dumb,
Harvard Law. Yeah.
I think he teaches. Does he not teach at a law school too?
I'm looking that up now.
What could he teach?
But I also don't trust it after the pronunciation thing now.
Speaking of dumb, boy, there's a whole ecosystem of clip farm people that think I am the dumbest man on television right now. They clip my debates with lefties, and the lefties all love it. Like, here is 45 seconds of Will getting dunked on by a Democrat.
You're doing it right, though.
And by the way, what's that?
You're doing it right. If they're doing that, you're doing something right.
I told Patrick, they seem to be confused about what I'm all about. I am not all about slapping somebody around that disagrees with me. I'm going to debate them hard, and I'm pretty confident that 8 out of 10 times I'm going to be on the right side of history and the debate. But if they think that I'm only trying to dunk and get viral 45-second clips of my own, they can live in that ecosystem, man, because that's not what this is. I may take some punches. I may lose, but it's going to be real. Like, that's the thing that I'm all about. It's going to be real. And maybe here and there, I actually think that Congressman Ivey yesterday is smart. He's smart, and he had some good points, and he landed some punches on me, and good for him. I don't agree with him in the end anyway. He didn't persuade me over necessarily, but good for him. And that's the way it should go. And I'm not into the dunk economy, okay? So I leave that to the rest of the thousands of you in this business. You have distinguished yourself. You're a unique character in the multi-thousand universe of dunk economy. Elie Mystal.
Based
I presume
on what
he's
I've
not
seen,
into...
Not a professor, from what I can tell. He's a justice correspondent at The Nation and an author of a book called Bad Law. So
okay, well, I
don't see anything else.
Have slandered Harvard or some unnamed law school that might have employed him. He was just educated at Harvard. I presume then he's opposed to the 1964 Civil Rights Act because it predated the 65 Voting Rights Act. So that's going to be a bummer for everybody. There goes the Civil Rights Act. I presume he's not into the women's suffrage movement. Bummer. That predated the 65 Voting Rights Act.
Not into the health movement.
Yeah, most of the Reconstruction laws, 14th Amendment, got to go. For that matter, the Constitution of the United States, got to go. Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, got to go. Happened before 65. So,
Good
by the way,
riddance.
I'll bet you he believes all that. I'm not even being silly. Bet he believes all that. Law should only be a product of our given period of time, living Constitution, so forth. Rewrite the Constitution with every new generation. I bet he believes that stuff to be true.
Like rewrite it to
And,
start from scratch?
I don't
After
know.
that point?
These guys can't write a budget bill on an annual basis. But they're going to rewrite the Constitution. They don't want. By the way, they don't want a Constitution.
God,
what he would
imagine
also
that,
argue
yeah.
for. They don't want a Constitution. They would vote for a constitutionalist society. So, which is odd because the Constitution at its very core is a protection of minorities. That's what it is. Minority viewpoints. We're not a pure democracy. It's not majority rules. There's certain things that a majority can't do to a minority. But they would want that. That's why they talk so much about democracy. They're not into republics. They're not into constitutional republics. They suggest they're into pure democracy. But they're only into pure democracy when they can control propaganda arms to control people's minds and control the voting outcomes. That's when they're into democracy. So otherwise, in the end, they're really into government by elite cabal that reflects your interests, which generally is just if you're in the elite cabal. Hey, we did that. That was the Soviet Union. What do you got, Patrick?
That's right. We got one more story. So talk to the internet.
That's right.
Couldn't find the
God,
mute
that's
button
good.
there. A Georgia father was arrested. See me framing here? Georgia father was arrested for leaving his young children at McDonald's when he attended a job interview. The internet is, talking about it. It's all a buzz. A lot of people are actually coming to his defense, including former NFL player Antonio Brown. And supporting him with financially. So, and then other people have said, like, dude is literally doing the best he could with what he has. I commend him for that. It's not easy. What do you say about the situation, leaving your 1, 6, and 10-year-old at McDonald's for a job interview?
That's right, Patrick.
That's right.
Oh man.
God.
By the way, the framing, the Georgia father, that's a callback to my Maryland father framing monologue yesterday. I see what you're doing there. I'm pro the Georgia father. He left him at a McDonald's. The 10-year-old's in charge of the 1-year-old. That's a stretch, maybe a little bit. I'm not sure I'd put my 10-year-old in charge of my 1-year-old. I don't know how long we're talking about as well. He went to a job interview, right? So he is doing his best. I think kids have been left with other kids for a long time. A long, long time. I think the only real debate is not whether or not he left him alone, but 10 and 1. Does a 10-year-old reliably cover the bases of a 1-year-old? Yeah, that's tough.
It also depends if this McDonald's had a ball pit and a playground. That's a big difference.
It did have a play area, Dan. Okay. And also, I do think, having a 1-year-old myself, there's a big difference between, is it a new one or almost 2-year-old? Because, there's a lot of growth in that 1 year.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. But it's more about the 10-year-old. Can the 10-year-old be trusted? Do you have a 10-year-old too, Patrick?
I have a 9 and 11-year-old.
I think he has an age at every age up until 12.
I know. Would you leave your 1-year-old with your 11-year-old, Patrick?
He watches her if my wife's leaving and I'm still here. So, he's responsible enough. Mm-hmm.
In the house?
Yeah.
Around the house. Keep an eye on it. Huh.
Exactly.
I was 10 years older than my youngest sibling. There's a 10-year gap between, I'm the oldest, he's the youngest. I looked after him from time to time. I just don't remember when it started. But in the end, I'm with this guy. Go get your job. Hopefully you weren't gone for more than 45 minutes at this job interview. How long does the job interview have to be anyway?
20, 30 minutes, I believe.
Okay, all right, that's quick takes. Let's take a quick break, and let's say goodbye to Val Kilmer with a top 5 list of the best movies from the star from the 80s and 90s. Next on The Cain Show. The best Doc Holliday ever. Val Kilmer. Rest in peace. Age 65. It is The Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe, please. Apple, Spotify. Leave a 5-star review. Jump into the comments, either here at YouTube, Facebook, or you can leave comments on the Apple Podcast app as well. Let us know what you think. Hang out with us. Be a member of the militia. Did you guys grow up? You guys are all younger than me. You guys are not at all 80s kids, I think. I think you guys
Born
were
in the
born
80s. 88.
in the 80s. So
Born in the 80s,
80s
but
pop
90s
culture
kids. 90s
would not
kids.
hit you.
No.
But 90s pop culture would hit you.
Yeah.
And Val Kilmer's heyday is probably from about 85 to 97. That's kind of his sweet spot of the big parts of his career. We lost Val Kilmer, age 65. He's been battling throat cancer for quite a number of years. And there was a documentary about him that kind of showed a lot about his life and him going through this. His character, Iceman in Top Gun Maverick, also had the same issues with his voice. They had to own that to bring him back. But we lost Val Kilmer. At one time, absolute bona fide movie star. I mean, absolute bona fide. And I will say, I don't think he was ever, we've all had this conversation like, if they're in it, I watch it. Denzel, I'm in. If there's a Denzel movie, I'm watching. I'm doing a Brad Pitt movie. If you know, I don't know who else. We
Leo.
talked about this. There's a lot, actually. I'm in on Leo. If Leo's in a movie, I'm trusting it's a good movie. It has obviously nothing to do with their politics. You know, like, it's almost like at some point, I like the characters you play, and you make good choices. Val Kilmer didn't reach that level, but he was not far from it. He made too many bad choices. There were some stinkers in there for him to get to that top level. And he wasn't a great Batman, and that hurt him. I heard on the radio this morning that Joel Schumacher, who directed Batman, said there's two things he'll never do in his life, which one is climb Mount Everest, and the second is ever direct again Val Kilmer. So he might have been hard to work with. But was Val Kilmer at all on y'all's radar at your age range, all of you are millennials?
Yeah.
James is a Gen Z, maybe.
Through the 90s, absolutely. I mean, tons and tons of movies. He wasn't one of those guys that was well known enough for us. Like you said, I would watch whatever he would do, like Robert Downey Jr., or Rob Lowe. And in the 80s, you would watch anything those guys were in, but not really on my radar in terms of that.
Do you feel like you've seen a lot of Val Kilmer movies? Patrick, have you seen a lot of his movies?
More recently, I probably didn't watch Heat, back in the 90s because I was, a 10-year-old. But, I went back and watched it and I enjoyed it. And I saw Tombstone recently and thought he was great in that. So it's more, recent that I'm appreciating him.
James, have you ever heard of Val Kilmer?
Up until today, I thought Val Kilmer was the short-haired girl with glasses in Scooby-Doo.
He's not joking.
That's a serious.
I don't think he is joking. I know he's not. And I'm not even mad at him because I think it is generational. But my boys don't know who Val Kilmer is. And James is closer to my son's age.
That's interesting.
So I get it. All right. So we'll see. I'm going to give you my top 5 Val Kilmer movies. We'll see how many of these all of you have seen, by the way. Patrick feels fairly confident that he can guess the number 1 movie on my list. And I think it's probably not hard because
I learned.
I literally have one of the lines in my X bio. So he probably could get number 1. The question is, could he get number 2 or 3? Go ahead, 2-a-days.
No, I learned that just now. That's what that is in your bio. I had no idea what that was from until you said
Really?
that. Absolutely not. I was just wondering that like 2 days ago.
All right. Well, I feel like you can't bury that. So the line is, I'm your huckleberry. There is some debate whether or not it's I'm your huckleberry or I'm your hucklebearer out there. It's a line from Doc Holliday when he has a fight with Johnny Ringo in Tombstone. It's the final showdown with Johnny Ringo. And Johnny Ringo thinks he's going to have a duel with Wyatt Earp, but it's not Wyatt Earp. And he says, I'm your huckleberry. I believe that's when it happened. Yeah, I think that's when it happened. Hope I'm not getting that scene wrong. It's his character in Tombstone is awesome. And any dude my generation absolutely loves that movie, but particularly loves Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. He's awesome. And I'm not going to bury the lead. That is my number 1 Val Kilmer movie. Patrick, you went back and watched Tombstone. Did you think it held up? Did you like Tombstone?
Oh, definitely. It's a very good movie.
Should I go watch it? I've never seen it.
You should watch it.
It is dated. It is 90s, and it is dated. I've rewatched it recently. Even the color content in the film, the cinematography, meaning the clarity of the picture, does feel. Now, when I go back and watch 90s, sometimes you're like, it's a little muddy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not as sharp as what we're used to seeing today. I think content-wise, I think it holds content-wise. All right, here are, without further ado, my favorite Val Kilmer movies. No, you guys will not seen some of these. Those that did not make the list, The Doors, Wonderland, wherein he plays John Holmes, the porn star, and Top Secret, which is his first big coming up. What are you laughing at? Well, what are you shaking your head at today? Do you not know who John Holmes is?
No.
Are you kidding me? You don't know who John Holmes is? He's the most famous porn actor of all time.
No.
Isn't he like Ron? Is he like
like
Ron
now
Jeremy?
or like back in the
Back
day?
in the 70s.
Back in the day.
I've never heard that
literally,
before.
Mark Wahlberg. Did you ever see Boogie Nights?
I did.
Well, that was loosely based on John Holmes, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I thought
right?
that was fiction. I had no idea.
John
That's
Holmes,
funny. I didn't watch
Yeah,
a lot of early porn.
Later in
think we got a
life,
Ruthless show
John
coming up.
Holmes was involved in the Wonderland murders in Los Angeles, and that's what that movie's about. That's a whole fascinating thing for you to look into. Yeah, I can't believe you don't know who John Holmes is. Man, I'm getting old. Okay, this is only going to make me older. At number 5, it's one of the Val Kilmer's first movies. I remember I was a kid when I watched it. I thought he was so cool in this movie. It's Real Genius. He goes to college. Yeah. He's a genius, but he's like a bad boy. He does a lot of tricks and pranks with his genius. I haven't actually watched it in probably 25 years, but I loved it when I was a kid. Anybody see Real Genius?
Parts of it a long time ago. Like when it was on TV or something.
At number 4, Top Gun. And it probably should be higher, but I have personal feelings for the other Val Kilmer movies. Stud, right?
Stud.
Look at him.
Look at those cheekbones,
Looks like
man.
he's ready to do the SEAL swim.
Hey, better looking than Tom Cruise. Let's be real, right?
Absolutely.
Like that character. Yes.
Wow. How old is he in that?
Stud as Iceman. I don't know. Look it up. That's probably.
That's
I'm gonna go.
That's your AI robots.
26. I'm gonna say 26 in that movie. At number 3, I love this. I had it on VHS. I watched it over and over and over. It's just fun to say I had VHSs. Reportedly, he took this movie instead of doing Batman 2, coming back and doing it again. Whatever, doing Batman a second time. The Saint.
Love
he
that
plays
movie.
like,
Love that movie.
You saw The Saint?
Right?
That was one of my favorite movies growing up. I was obsessed with it.
He's got like the shifty personality.
Loved it.
So good.
He dresses up and all these different characters. He's a master of disguise.
So cool.
It's great.
Yes. I totally agree with that one.
I need to rewatch The Saint and see if it holds up.
Yeah.
And then finally, at number 2, Heat, which was a big deal for Val Kilmer apparently to take this movie with Michael Mann because he was already a big-time movie star at this point, but he was taking a supporting role. His agent told him not to take it because it was a De Niro Pacino vehicle. He decides to take it. His only request is that he's on the movie poster. And Michael Mann's like, yeah, I'll put you on the movie poster. There is no way, Patrick, if you saw this fairly recently, apparently, gone back, this has to hold up. Like Heat, for any dude my age, is an absolute banger. It's a cultural, iconic movie. Surely you loved Heat.
Oh, yeah. It's great. It's fantastic.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Getaway scene.
I'm all in on all these action movies now. I mean, it's fantastic. Well, you need to go back and watch 90s.
Dan, you never
movies.
saw Heat?
I never did. It's always been like, I've known about it, but I've never seen it.
Oh, I've got to bet it holds up. I mean, it's been a while, but
It's
got to
really, really
bet you
good.
got to watch. You go back and you're like, oh, doesn't feel old. This feels like a good movie. I mean, it's, Kilmer and Pacino and De Niro.
Cop movie?
You got Ashley Judd. What?
Is it a cop movie?
Bank robber and cop movie.
Got it.
Yeah. And then famously after it came out, I'm going to say it came out in 93. In 94, you had the famous, I'm guesstimating on these dates. You had the famous bank robbery in LA that ended up in real life looking like Heat. Do you guys at all remember this news story? You were little kids. Sure. But these dudes, who I think it turned out to be from like, I don't know, Eastern Bloc Europe, they got booted up in full-on, bulletproof stuff, including helmets, and had automatic rifles, and I mean it, automatic, not semi-automatic, and took on the cops. They robbed this bank. The cops got called, and it was a shootout in the streets of L.A. that looked like Heat, and it's all on TV because there was a television crew cameras overhead, and they were tracking these guys, and they were going behind cars to cars, behind houses, just full-on shoot them up with the cops, which is the climactic scene in Heat.
I'm in.
Yeah. I highly recommend you go back and watch Heat. And then number one, of course, is Tombstone. Go ahead, Two-Days.
Two things about Val Kilmer. One movie you're missing is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is my favorite movie. Top 10 movie of all time with Robert Downey Jr. Have you ever seen that one?
See, now I don't think I've seen it.
It's amazing.
I don't think I ever got around to seeing that.
It's one of the best movies, top 10 for me of all movies. And
not just a Val Kilmer vehicle, all movies top 10. Okay.
All movies top 10.
All right.
And then we just have to appreciate Val Kilmer as Jim Morrison. He just looks like him. For the audience, this is a side-by-side comparison that's listening. It's Jim Morrison in the Doors movie. He looks just like him.
Absolutely.
Wow,
It's crazy.
Perfectly cast.
Yes.
Perfectly cast.
Perfectly
Yes.
cast. Didn't he just walk? Patrick, didn't you say he just walked in and he got the role?
Yeah, he walked in like Jim Morrison into the casting, and they just gave it to him right there.
Crazy.
I mean, I don't know how you couldn't. Right. The only reason I didn't make it is I'm just not a big Doors fan. I never was. The whole thing, the vibe, the music. I don't dislike the music, but I've never been in a situation in my life where I'm like, you know what would be perfect right now? The Doors.
It's because
you know what I mean?
Because you don't do hard drugs.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. I think that's what it is. Like, it's not on a road trip. Somebody's like, put on the Doors. You're like, yeah, that fits.
Yeah.
It's not sitting around with your buddies in the backyard and going, play the Doors. No, it doesn't fit. I think that the situation you have to find yourself in is we're all going to do a bunch of drugs. And then the Doors fit perfectly.
Yeah, poolside with Hunter S. Thompson, and it's perfect.
Yeah. Hunter Biden.
I'm surprised, given your love of fantasy, that you didn't choose his role in Willow.
Oh, yeah. I did see that when I was a kid, but that didn't stick. I'm not. I know you're being facetious with my love of fantasy. Yeah, not a big fan of fantasy. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm not saying. You get what I'm saying. Not a big fan of fantasy. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. We'll see you same time, same place again here tomorrow on The Will Cain Show.